Hey, mind if I ask you guys something? And, by the way, I'm asking specifically for those who currently don't follow the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Has this ever happened to you?
Okay, let's say the latest Avengers movie is coming out. Everybody is talking about it and all the hype and buzz got you curious. Even if you're not familiar with the MCU, you're still interested in seeing it anyways. You look up on what to do to prepare yourself for the new movie and end up with a giant list that goes as follows. In order to fully understand the new Avengers movie, you gotta first check out the previous Avengers films. But in order to get context of the recent events, you'll have to see some of the more recent films like Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Civil War. But in order to understand Civil War, you have to see the other Captain America movies.
And in order to get what is happening in the other Avengers films, you gotta watch the Thor and Iron Man movies along with the Incredible Hulk. And to understand the Gemstones and Thanos' family, you also need to go and watch the Guardians of the Galaxy films and Doctor Strange.
See? Even though it's one of the biggest franchises in Hollywood history, this is why there are still a lot of people like me that don't follow the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The amount of homework required is like Thanos' powers. It keeps getting bigger and more intimidating just to catch up with the franchise's narrative.
Now, don't get me wrong. This is not to say that I am against the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm not a Marvel hater, nor do I even think that all the Marvel movies are bad or anything like that. I am actually very aware that many of them are actually meant to be built to be their own thing on top to go and build up this giant narrative in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In fact, there are a few that I really do enjoy myself. Just to name a few, I think the Guardians of the Galaxy films are actually really awesome, and also, Black Panther is a great movie, and not only is it great, but also, I do feel like it is one of the most progressive movies that I have ever seen. However, if I want to be serious about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if I want to get serious about getting myself into the Marvel Cinematic Universe to go and understand the context of everything, then I would have to go and start from the very beginning. And I don't necessarily mean starting off with the first Avengers or anything like that. I literally mean the very first movie that was made for this universe. Like what Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is to Walt Disney, this movie is the one that started it all for Marvel. And I'm talking about, of course, the 2008 feature film, Iron Man.
Interestingly enough, it was never meant to be the start of something that was way bigger than anyone could ever imagine. Ever since 1990, several studios tried and failed to make a big budgeted adaptation to the Marvel comic, starting with Universal, which then the rights got bought by Fox, who then sold it to New Line, who would later say screw it and gave the rights back to Marvel. At that point, Marvel's film division decided to go into a whole new direction where they decided that they don't need any help from other big studios like Fox or Sony and would completely finance their Iron Man movie all on their own, with Paramount helping them with distribution. Believe it or not, before the film, Iron Man wasn't all that much of a popular character in the levels of Spider-Man or Hulk, so it wasn't easy finding people who were even interested in making the film. But things would then start to shape up when they got director Jon Favreau on board, along with several writers, in order to make a superhero movie that would go in a direction that was less like Batman and Spider-Man, and more like James Bond and RoboCop.
Back then, it was Marvel's big statement to state that they were ready to go into the movie business all by themselves. They don't need no big company to go and make their films. They can prove to them all that they are a strong, independent studio. Now, it is true that yes, they don't have the essential rights to some of the bigger ones and some of the more important Marvel characters like Spider-Man and X-Men, but they can still work with the materials that they got, and they were willing to risk everything in order to bring superheroes into filmmaking styles that have yet to be explored. And at the end of the day, with this one, well, the first movie really did pay off with that.
When you think of a superhero movie, you'd probably first think about the incredible action that comes with it, with all the fighting scenes and the times when the hero would show off his powers. The film definitely delivers on those elements, but I'll get to that a little later because there is something else here that's important and really worth talking about. Iron Man isn't just about the action, it's also a character-driven story that features a lot of great performances, including Sean Tube as Yin Sen, Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts, and Terrence Howard as Rodney, whose role is mainly a teaser of what would be to come in the MCU.
Next time, baby.
But the true star of the whole feature is the Iron Man himself, Tony Stark. Thanks to the skillful acting of Robert Downey Jr., Tony is one of the best examples of a despicable yet lovable character. He has the right blend of what people both despise and admire about millionaires, but when looking into the life of Stark, he would lean more onto the latter. Sure, a lot of his fortune is inherited from his father, but he is a genius himself, capable of making the revolutionary stuff in Stark Industries that helped the company grow. On top of that, his character arc is also what mainly carries the movie. After seeing firsthand how his weapons can also be in the hands of the 10 rings, he realizes how no good can come from creating tools of war if the enemy can also be his customers, and wants to change the direction of the company to focus on arc reactor technology than on weapons, which would ultimately lead him to focus on making the suit. At this point, the film handles Stark's development very well, where it shows him turning over a new leaf, but still have some of the same traits from before to not have him become an entirely different character, and to lighten up the mood with a bit of comedy.
I thought you said you were done making weapons.
It is. This is a flight stabilizer.
It's completely harmless.
I didn't expect that.
It shows how Tony is still human and can have a heart to know what is morally right, which is also added with his relationship with Pepper, where he might view her more than just an assistant around the house. On top of that, it also gives the movie a bit of an anti-war commentary to show that even if your intentions is to help out the good guys, nothing good can come out from creating things whose purpose is to just destroy.
But I understand, yes, all these filmmaking elements are great, and they're all delivered very well thanks to the directing talents of Jon Favreau. Yeah, that's nice and all. But I know what you guys want. Now, I've taken a lot of my time to go and discuss about the movie in this superhero movie, but now it is time that we shall look into the superhero aspect. And let me tell ya, Iron Man definitely doesn't ignore the people who want the action.
While it does a good job giving attention to the human side of things to have this be good as a movie, it is still aware about the main reason why people would want to watch it, and that is Iron Man in action. For Tony Stark to put on the suit and fight off bad guys, have bullets be useless against his armor, and to fly around at high speeds. Even if one doesn't care about the calmer moments, the action ends up becoming easily engaging thanks to the right amount of intensity, a fast pace where a lot can happen at a short amount of time, and an awesome soundtrack that can pump up the mood of the moment. Seriously, every time the music comes up, it's like a cue of when it's time to let out your feelings when something crazy happens. On top of that, while it is more than 10 years old, the visual effects look great. Even by today's standards, it is true that it's because the grand majority is used on the machinery, which is easier to visually make it seem realistic compared to something organic. It still adds to the action to make those scenes look great, and to get sucked into the movie's world, on top of playing a big part in paying homage to the comics.
Admittedly, I've never read any of the comics, but with a bit of research, I could tell that the prototype right over here is actually a nod to when Iron Man first appeared in the comics. But let's go and get back into the movie. Now, it is very easy to get engaged and to really get yourself hyped up while watching this movie. However, if there is one thing that was actually difficult, it was actually to go and find any criticism to say if there would be any flaws with this movie. And unfortunately, while it would be nice to say that I love this movie and that it is perfect, there's no flaws at all, There is this one thing that I do feel like it kind of holds it back from its true potential. Now, it doesn't damage the movie or anything like that. It doesn't like ruin anything, but it's just that it's this thing right over here that keeps Iron Man away from going good to amazing. And what I'm talking about is regarding the villain. Now, before I continue, even though, yeah, you've most likely seen it already, I just feel like it's right to go and give out a bit of a spoiler warning before we can continue on.
Okay, you've seen the movie, you don't mind the spoilers? Good, let's continue. In this movie, the main villain turns out to be Obadiah Stane, whom in the end would become Ironmonger. I would clarify now that this is more of an issue with how he is written. Acting-wise, Jeff Bridges does a great job. It's just the materials he was working with is a bit lacking. The problem with Stane is that he's a pretty cliched villain, giving the film some predictability in the story. I mean, it plays him as a surprise twist villain, but is it really that much of a surprise that the antagonist turns out to be the business partner that's all about weapons to the point of even collaborating with the enemy? Even the ending seems unoriginal of him going after the girl and then the hero has to come in to save the day with the ultimate battle between Iron Man and Ironmonger. Granted, it is an epic ending that does supply some good action, but I think it's safe to say that Ironmonger isn't one of the most memorable villains of the MCU.
I never had a taste for this sort of thing!
But in a way, like the movie, Stane wasn't enough to just take down Iron Man, and even if the villain isn't all that well made, this movie is still really good. Iron Man is not only a great superhero movie that could supply a lot of engaging action and nice-looking visual effects, but it's also a strong movie on its own with some solid writing and wonderful acting. Not only does it serve as a great starting point to entering the MCU, but it is also a good recommendation for anyone that wants a well-made and fun action flick. It can please everyone, rather if they want either a good feature or more just something to enjoy all the cool stuff. You can't go wrong with this one. As for my rating, I'll give this an enthusiastic 8 out of 10. I won't put this in the legendary status, but still worth ranking up as one of the better superhero movies.
But funny enough, even though I literally just said that I wouldn't count this as a legendary movie as a movie, I am still highly aware that this is still one of the most important movies ever to be made in modern cinema history for its impact. Because it came out as a financial success, and that both audiences and critics gave their approval, that was the signal that Marvel made the right move to go independent, and would go on to reshape the superhero genre into something that is far bigger than anyone could ever imagine. Something that would completely shake up the film industry, where now superhero films are now considered a major event, and would go on to make Marvel a pioneer in the film industry, where they are recognized as the creators and the masters of the cinematic universe. Not bad for something that started out as just letting Robert Downey Jr. playing with some metal. See you later, dudes!
Look great, Hef.